amount of times I hear that. And I've even taught, that technique before in some of my lessons, just simply to get the scale learned of the blues. That doesn't mean you play it like that, though. And the amount of times I hear beginner blues players, intermediate blues players, who want to play blues and jazz piano, just learn a scale, learn the blues scale and think, this is how blues works. This is how jazz works. You learn a scale, learn a pattern and it works. Absolute nonsense. That is not how music works. Music is not about just learning a scale. So today I'm hoping I'm going to give you some very simple tips. If you're a beginner, it's going to come from a very simple way, hopefully, to give you some real usable techniques that you can get into playing blues and jazz, improvising away from music to feel like you're actually sounding quite professional and quite good, and give you some real life tips. I mean, if you've played with some great musicians, I've been very fortunate in my life to play with some absolutely fabulous session musicians who've played with some of the greatest musicians on earth. And when you've had that privilege to be able to play with them, you hear there is something different about the way that they play. And all the bands I played in my sort of youth and early 20s, these musicians were far better than me. And that made me a far better musician, because you need to be at the bottom of the rung of the ladder with everyone above you to be able to learn these techniques. And you hear how they play and you realise they're not using scales. They don't analyse, am I going to play a Dorian mode today? Or am I going to play the C blues scale today in this piece? No, they're just doing it by feel. They're doing it by their experience. And tip 1 today, the first thing I need you to understand is listen. The first starting point for any blues jazz improviser is you've got to soak yourself in listening to proper, real cool recordings. Go onto Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you use and just put in some of the jazz artists. Let me just throw out some: Herbie Hancock, Oscar Peterson, Bud Powell, Bill Evans. Just throw some in. Even Jules Holland if you want to learn about boogie woogie. Just listen to them play. Maybe don't even analyse. You think, well, Kieran, where do I start? Just start by putting your headphones on, grabbing yourself a cup of coffee and listening. It's as simple as that. Just putting your headphones on and going, wow, this sounds awesome. You might ask yourself, how does he do that? How does Bill Evans create that amazing chord? But just absorb music. That's tip 1 really, because what will happen is you will start then, when you're playing the blues, to create the rhythm, and the pitches that those people play will automatically come out in your playing eventually if you absorb it. It's a bit like, I'll give you an illustration. When you were small, when you were 6 months old, what analytical and special learning technique did you employ to learn how to speak English? I don't think you did you? Well, that's the point. You just absorbed. The human brain's an incredible thing. It can absorb. It's designed to do that, to absorb things that we hear around us. And so when you were a baby, you absorbed 100% of your waking hours, language and noise and sound, and you learnt to speak. Your parents didn't get out a pen and paper and start to teach you techniques of how to analyse what they were saying. You learnt this complex language of English over time. Later it became formalised perhaps in school with grammar lessons and things like that, but you could speak by the time you got to secondary school to really do advanced learning of the grammar of English. You could speak fine and communicate fine, an expert. The same is true with music. You can become an amazing improviser using the language of music by absorbing it. It just takes longer as an adult, sadly. So start now. It's never too late. Anyway, enough of my waffle. Let's do some playing techniques. So my advice, right, as you're starting out, is to get that feel of the blues, like a basic 12-bar blues idea. just by playing something called what we call the boogie stomp, which is just this. It's just a straight 4 to the floor, moving between the C chord and C6. We call that C6 because that's the 6th of the chord of C. And that creates the basic rhythm of the blues. And then you can go to the F chord and eventually the G chord. Learn the 12-bar pattern. I'm sure you know that anyway. There's plenty of other clips on YouTube. You can go and learn the 12-bar pattern. So just get that so it's automatic. Now, when I say automatic, just when you can play it like this, and I can just talk to you about blues and about jazz and about piano and about what I'm doing for the day and what I'm having a little drink of coffee later or whatever, I can just talk a conversation to you while playing. That's what you need to be able to get to the point. So your left hand's then you're not going to think about it at all. One hand has to become automatic. Now, the next step is, learn the blues scale. But back to my original point, the blues scale is not there to go up and down. It's just a pattern of notes that might be used as a guide, as a skeleton. So, what other notes could we put in? Well, one of the notes we could put in is something called the major 7th. In a scale of C, there is a B, and that's called the major 7th because it belongs to the major key. It's not in the blues scale. That doesn't mean we don't play it. If you listen to recordings by great artists and things, they always use it. It's always in the music, so use it. So add another note in. Another note that works is the 6th, the major 6th of the A. So now we've got this added into the scale. We could even use a C sharp, in some context. It sometimes works. Don't be scared to throw things in and experiment and be creative. But really, the 6th, the 7th, and the 2nd actually is quite an important note to add in there. So we've got the 2nd. So we've got blues scale of C. D, we've got the A, we've got the B, and they're the notes we can use. Now, what do we do next? Don't go up and down the scale. Just limit yourself now. Limit yourself to 3 notes of that particular pattern. Let's do them not next door to each other either. Let's go C, B flat, and let's use one of those extra notes, the E. How does that sound? So, oh, that's quite a nice sound because you've got that clash, that jar that you normally want to hear the E flat, but that's quite a nice little idea. So we've taken 3 notes. What are we going to do now? Well, we're going to focus on rhythm. So I'm going to create a little rhythm in my vocal cords. I'm a terrible singer, but I can vocalize rhythms. Ba-doo-da-da, ba-doo-da-da. It's a jazz rhythm. Ba-doo-da-da. How do I know that's a jazz rhythm? I listen. No one taught me, Kieran, in the class of music, when I went to music college and university and all that, this is a jazz rhythm. Da-doo-da-da. No one taught that. You just pick it up. And I'm not some kind of genius, natural, gifted musician. I have to learn, just like anyone else has to learn. And I've just listened to that and I just know. Da-doo-da-da. You, by all means, can take that rhythm and have a go at this exercise. So, da-doo-da-da, da-doo-da-da. So I've got the left hand going and I want to put that over the top. Now, I've now brought in the next element of what I'm going to try and teach you is melody development. Did you notice I went finishing on the B flat and then finished on a different note? So I've gone up here, down here. I've shaped a melodic idea. I'm using 4 notes now. I'm using that clashy E with the E flat. But I've just used a B flat there. it's already sounding better than... It sounds much better than doing that. It's proper blues because it's a nice little rhythm, it's a nice idea. Let's expand the rhythm. So ba-doo-da-da, ba-ba-ba-da. Oh, I did like it. So I did that, a little kind of ornament. So I'm now going to take my idea and I'm going to now try and ornamentate it in a way, if that's a word. Kind of make it more fancy by putting some surrounding notes in it. I could go like this. Or. So the C becomes kind of my main note. I've got some notes above it. And I've now got some notes below it. So I could go. I like that. So let's work with that idea. Yeah, it's coming together, but there's a problem. And this brings me on to the next tip. I'm far too busy. I'm trying to fill the space because I'm being too nervous. And I'm thinking music must be full of notes. So let's get loads of notes in. Wrong. Music's full of silence. Music's full of space. If you listen to some of Miles Davis records, I really highly recommend listening to Miles Davis, and especially the era when Herbie Hancock and Bill Evans played the piano for him. You find lots of really cool, just held sounds that just sound so warm and so cool. I mean, listen to this. Use that rhythm again. I'm putting in kind of like a dissonance, altered chord here. I'm using space, I'm using length of notes, I suppose, if we can think of it like that. Holding notes. It's not all about throwing notes in. So let's do now a kind of a combination of those sort of rhythmic ideas, a few of these blues notes plus some extra ones, and there's going to be some notes that really don't work, but that's cool because we're experimenting. We're trying to come from a beginner's point of view here. So I'm going to play that blues boogie sort of stomp down in the lower octave. Oh, I forgot to tell you, sorry. I'm not just going to stick on the C chord here. I'm going to actually go through a 12-bar pattern kind of idea based around it to an F chord, the G pattern, back to the C, and I might even do some passing notes in the left hand to kind of like that, make that bass line sound a little bit more funky. You don't need to. You know, that just happens automatically when I play, but there's nothing wrong with keeping to this just really relaxed stomp. I would recommend going to the F chord and the G chord. You don't need to change the blues scale or the blues kind of key tonal center. You can use the C, no problem. So, here we go. that would be sort of me imitating sort of a beginner piano player, what they could do. So if you're a beginner, you could do something like that, no problem. Now, there was a few notes that I deliberately put in there that perhaps didn't sound too good, because that's going to happen. It happens to me even when I'm practicing, or even when I'm playing live and things, it will happen. But there I sort of throw in quite a lot of things that maybe didn't work. But did you think, that was dreadful? That's absolutely awful, you know, I'd never want to play like that. Not really, because it had some good rhythmic elements, it had some good chord changes, some interesting ideas. It was fun to play. And that's what music should be about. It's about the journey, isn't it? Getting there. Let's show you something at a slower speed now, because I think this is another little thing you need to think about, is go slow. Don't, excuse me, try a million miles an hour all the time. Okay. Right. Take a particular note of my right hand here. Another mess around, playing various ideas, trying to throw in stuff that perhaps might not work, might work, having some fun, all based around that basic pattern scales, but throwing in extra notes. Now, that's one approach. There are many other approaches to playing the blues music. One thing probably you don't want to do, I wouldn't recommend, is get sheet music for blues music. It doesn't, in my experience, work. It's better to go on to a recording and work it out and have to go at kind of learning the structure and the chords, and maybe even going onto a YouTube channel like myself and learning a tune via that, and then kind of working and around that tune. Some really good YouTubers out there that I really recommend are people like Tony Winston, Jazz Piano College. He's really cool. Amy Nolte's got a very, very good channel. She's more at the sort of more advanced end, but very, very good indeed. And then there's Kent Hewitt, extremely good. Christian from Berlin. Amazing YouTubers who come from different perspectives. So what I say is not sort of it. There's many approaches to music, and hopefully you enjoyed what we did today. So I hope that was really good for you. Sign up, subscribe please to my channel if you like what we did today. Any questions, pop them in the comments box and get in touch. Thanks very much. Let's see you later.